Howdy folks, and welcome to the Salt Mine Discord Q&A for, August. I almost forgot what month it was. Of course, if you couldn't make it in person at the Q&A, then you're probably watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles. Before we get started, I do have a sponsor today, so we're going to run that, and then we'll crack on with the questions. Now, I'm sure you're all aware that every time you go on the internet, your personal data is being harvested by data brokers and sold on to, well, basically anybody who will pay for it. Usually, things like insurance companies or credit companies, making it harder for you to get credit and raising your insurance premiums without you even knowing anything about it. It's also possible that you may be aware that under most legal jurisdictions, you're entitled to go after these data brokers and demand that they remove any information about you that they hold on file. Now that's fine in theory, but it's a lot harder in practice because, well, do you even know who these data brokers are? I mean, I didn't, but they knew who I was. And that's where Incogni comes in, because Incogni does all of the hard work for you. Incogni goes after the data brokers, submitting demands that they remove any data that they hold on file for you, and I'm actually pretty good about taking care of my online data. So when I signed up for Incogni's service, I wasn't particularly surprised to find that 69 data brokers that Incogni went after didn't actually hold any data on me, but a further 26 did. And Incogni not only got them to remove any of my personal data, they also slapped them with a suppression order to ensure that they couldn't accidentally re-add me back to their lists in the future, and they keep checking up on them to ensure that they comply with these legal requirements because, oh, would you look at that, sometimes some of them don't. So head over to incogni.com/jingles and use code JINGLES to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That's incogni.com/jingles and use code JINGLES, or just click the link below to take your personal data off the market. Right, now that the bills are paid, let's crack straight on. I don't actually have any announcements or anything to do this week, so we'll just fire up the questions and see where we end up. So the first question comes from Battlefield Boom. Good morning, beloved senile old man. I hope you're recording. I am, thank you. Have you ever been to Poland before? I have. Just once. Was Warsaw, was the World of Tanks Grand Finals, the esports thing. I was presenting the community live stream with Quickie Baby and Luke Nella, and it was really, really good. Warsaw, beautiful city. Although I understand that the Poles aren't particularly fond of all of the brutalist Russian architecture that the Soviets left behind, but there's some very, very impressive buildings there. I also noted that there aren't a huge amount of buildings that were left standing after World War II, for what should be fairly obvious reasons, but the ones that were, you can still see the bullet holes in the walls. So yeah, there's a lot of history there, but it was a really, really nice place. He says, if not, what would be a place that you'd like to visit? Maybe Auschwitz. I wouldn't say I'd like to visit Auschwitz, but yeah, I feel like it's one of those places that if you get the opportunity, you probably should. His one final question is, when's the annual War Thunder video? Yeah, about that. I'm sure I mentioned this, well, actually I did mention this before, it was about 4 or 5 months ago, but there hasn't been any change. So, here's what happened. Logged into War Thunder one day to notice that my account name had been changed, and somebody had been playing my account. Now, I was getting notifications that people had been trying to access my account from all kinds of weird places. And on this occasion, somebody from Singapore tried to log into my account. It looks like they've been successful. They hadn't messed around with anything, they hadn't sold any vehicles or anything like that, but clearly my account had been compromised. So the only thing that you can do is shut the account down and then request Gaijin to reopen it for you after resetting the credentials. Here's the problem. When I started playing War Thunder years ago, I had a different email address. And of course the email address that was associated with my War Thunder account, I don't have anymore, so I don't have access to it. So somebody's been messing around with the account, and as far as Gaijin are concerned, somebody from an email address that doesn't belong to the account owner is saying, can you reset my account please? Highly suspicious. So I couldn't actually get the account back up and running. Well, anyway, I mentioned this in Mingles with Jingles months ago. And of course this means that you also can't watch War Thunder replays, because you need to be logged in to the replay site, which requires the same account credentials as your actual War Thunder thing. So I couldn't even watch War Thunder replays anymore, so that was a bit of a bummer. But then somebody working for Gaijin was listening to Mingles with Jingles, and they said, don't worry, I can get this sorted out for you. Raise a support ticket, put these details in, and we'll get your account unlocked. So I did all of that. 5-6 months later, I still don't have access to my War Thunder account. So there isn't going to be an annual War Thunder video, because I can't play War Thunder or even watch War Thunder replay. The bizarre thing was, though, and this is really weird, because initially when War Thunder came out, there was no Steam version of War Thunder. And then it eventually came out on Steam as well, and anybody who had the standalone Gaijin launcher was invited to link their account to Steam. So I did that. I can get into my Steam War Thunder account, but it's not my account. It's really, really weird. If I try to get into War Thunder through the Gaijin launcher, it doesn't work because the account's been reset. But if I log into War Thunder through Steam, I can get into the game, but it's not my name, and it's definitely not all of the ships and tanks and aircraft that I had unlocked, so I don't know what the hell's going on, but yeah. I'm basically done with War Thunder, not through choice, just because, well, my account got hacked and Gaijin customer support is incompetent. So yeah, sorry about that. Nothing I can do. Second question comes from Did Nothing Too. He says, howdy Jingles, will you be taking some time off this summer now that you're churning out videos on a Sunday as well? Also, keep calm, and yes, I am recording. I don't have plans to take any time off, although I really am starting to feel like I need a break. Because I'm trying to remember the last time I actually took off. I mean, I take holidays every Christmas, but the last time I actually went anywhere and did anything, and I can't remember when it was. It might have been when I went to New York 6-7 years ago. So I really do feel like I might actually have to. It doesn't mean I have to take a break from uploading videos. I was supposed to be going up to Birmingham to see my friend Roy, the Jingles stunt double, last weekend. We were going to go to the Royal Air Force Museum at Cosford, spend the weekend, go out, have a meal, just, you know, take a break. And in preparation for that, all of last week I pulled double shifts all week, churning out 2 videos every day and pre-uploading stuff to cover Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday. And then on the Thursday night I got sick, so I had to call it off, which was a shame. I was really looking forward to it. I haven't seen Roy in ages. And of course I'd already pre-uploaded videos for the whole weekend, so I had nothing to do, so that was fun. But yeah, I'm probably, like I say, I mean, I really do feel like I need to take a break, but I can. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to be any videos, because I can just pull a double shift all week, getting ready, with pre-uploaded videos before I go anywhere or do anything. This next week's going to be really, really busy though. I'm sure you're all aware my best friend Eddie died of bowel cancer last year, and then 5 months later I got diagnosed with it, so that was fun. But when he died, I was named one of the executors of his will, and it's been a long, hard, rocky road, but we finally got his house sold. So on Friday, the contracts have already been signed, and on Friday we exchanged the keys. But there's all kinds of things that I have to do. This is going to be a really busy week. I've got to phone the water company, the phone company, the electricity company, the council, to sort out his council tax and get everything finalised, ready for the handover of the property. But once that's done, that's it. Of course, then there's the trust that we need to, which we're taken care of, but we have to set up a trust for his beneficiaries, his godchildren. But that's you know, slow time thing. You know, we've got what, probably something like 15 years before they're going to get their hands on the money from the sale of his house. But his parents need reimbursement for all the stuff that they've paid for in order to get everything to the stage where it is. But there's a really, really busy week coming up, and after this is all done, I really feel like I need to take some time off. I'll see if I can get up to Birmingham and see Roy, and hopefully not fall sick this time. But yeah, thanks for the question. Anyway, this one from Tank 50 US, and holy crap, this is a long one. Greetings, Rear Admiral Jingles. Sorry this is long, he says. Yep, it is. 2 small bits of news. He finally got his mitts on an M1 Garand from November 1943. Oh, that's really cool. I take it you're in, well, your name's Tank 50 US, so I'm guessing you're American. It's in need of some restoration, as it was sporterised sometime after World War II, but she still pings, but the work on that's begun. As promised, I have this to present. Okay, there's a link. What's this? Let's have a quick look. DeviantArt. Oh, oh yeah. It's an image. It's an image with the Royal Navy flag and logo, and myself. With, I'll take a copy of this and stick it up at this point during the video so you can actually see what it is, because otherwise this makes no sense whatsoever. He says, I hope you can appreciate the effort in the design and notice he even attempted to include your primary mini Akazuki as a micro-raptor. They'd be the equivalent of the ship's cat in this setting. So he's got a challenge for me. Okay. Since you have a mostly unbuilt army of Imperial Guard at your disposal, that's true, I've only got 2 figures painted. Holy Terror commands you to prepare this army for glorious battle for the Emperor. Ooh, this sounds like a lot of work. It has been decreed that this army shall bear the look of the MCRN. From the Actually, that's not a bad idea for a colour scheme. The Martian Congressional Republic Navy from the Expanse. How you go about this will be up to... That's not a bad idea for a colour scheme, actually, for an Imperial Guard unit. It's not... Yeah, I might... Yeah. Oh, what's this? Once finished, you want to locate and locate and participate in a local rogue trader tournament. You have 3 months for the first part and as soon as possible for the second. Should you complete it, I will create a full, from scratch, Space Wolves army in the theme of the Space Vikings from the planet Va. There's a Red Dwarf reference there. For any point. If you know, you know. Do you accept this challenge? I might accept the first half. Don't think I'm going to accept the second half, though. But I do like the idea of an MCRN colour scheme for an Imperial Guard unit. Because, I mean, everybody paints their Imperial Guard and it's always just the same box art, Cadian shock troops, which is a good look, but yeah, MCRN, not a bad idea. Anyway, yeah, thanks for that. Now to the next question from Eric125. Hello Jingles, I was watching some of your Cold Waters videos again and noticed that some of them are missing. Is there any chance you would upload them again, or are they lost forever? Thank you. I'm afraid they were victims of the adpocalypse. Well, mostly my fault. There was a time you could get away with using copyrighted music on YouTube. Nobody cared. And in fact, what I used to do was... I thought I was being remarkably sneaky, but yeah, I wasn't. It was just that YouTube didn't really care. I figured if I record... Let's say there's a tune that I wanted to use in a YouTube video, and it's obviously, you know, copyrighted music, it belongs to somebody. But I figured that if I could record it from a video, if I could do desktop capture, if I could fire up YouTube itself, find that piece of music on YouTube, and then do a desktop capture of the YouTube video playing, and then just use the audio from that. That was stuff that was on YouTube and hadn't been copyright struck, so if I use that, it should be okay. Yeah, I know, stupid idea, but it made sense to me at the time. But it wasn't the case that whoever had uploaded that had figured out a way of getting past the YouTube algorithm. It was just that, well, YouTube didn't care as long as the videos were making money and nobody was suing them. And then people started suing them, and the adpocalypse hit, and suddenly YouTube started getting really, really strict about copyrighted music content. And I had to go through at least 500 videos that were flagged for copyright. And well, remove them. And some of the Cold Waters videos were a victim of that. The one in particular that people keep talking about is the one where I managed to do a Jingles landing in the submarine. My submarine flooded and I bottomed out, and I managed to... I was just so deep that the pumps on the sub couldn't work against the water pressure at that depth. But I still had propulsion. So I reversed the submarine, dragged it along the surface up an underwater hill, if you like, until I reached a depth where the pumps could actually start pumping the water out very, very slowly, which would allow me to get a bit higher and a bit higher, and then the pumps got more efficient the less the water pressure was, and then eventually I managed to get the sub back up to the surface. And that was all set to some Tchaikovsky music. I can't remember the exact title of the piece, but it was a great video, and unfortunately it got claimed by the adpocalypse. So yeah, there's stuff like that, and a lot of the old Why You Have to Be Mad videos, because they all use copyrighted music, they're all gone, because otherwise, well, I wasn't going to get sued, but I was going to get punished heavily by YouTube if I didn't remove them. So now I just don't use copyrighted music. I've got this signed up to this service called Epidemic Sound. And there's some really, really good music on there. Any of the music that you've heard on any of my videos, well, that isn't in-game music, for the last couple of years has all been from Epidemic Sound. Some fantastic stuff, and it's all royalty free. Although you just have to pay a subscription to the service, but it's totally worth it. So yeah, sorry about that. Those videos are gone forever. The next question comes from the Make-A-Whoosh Foundation. Howdy Jingles, howdy cats, howdy chat. Yes, I am recording. Have you heard about the Citizens Initiative to Save Gaming? Yeah, I have actually. It's been in the news quite a bit lately. It's getting some traction in the EU, not so much in the US, but well, to explain what it is, and he does it here in the question, it's requesting an EU law that for sale games needing any phone home bullshit or common servers to work may not be abandoned without patching out that requirement and or allowing gamers to set up their own servers. The law would ask nothing of the gaming companies while the game is supported, just not to leave it unplayable. Right now, they're trying to get enough signatures across they need 1 million signatures across the EU to have it considered. Funnily enough, so far he's only seen Americans pleading us to please do something. There is, if you go to the website and you're in the EU, you can sign the petition. It needs 1 million signatures to pass across all of the EU. And even though people like, well, me, because I'm British and I'm not in the EU, and Americans, there are, even if you're not able to actually sign the signature, they have instructions for your nationality on what you can do to actually help. So it's definitely worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description. Because, believe it or not, it's been estimated that something like 80% of all of the computer games that have ever been written are no longer playable because of things like this. It doesn't matter whether you own them or not, you can't play them because they've been abandoned by the, not so much the developer, but the publisher. So yeah, worthy cause, put a link in the description. Next question comes from Yamatog2. Dear Almighty Overlord Jingles, did the various Royal Navy vessels that you served on have any kind of official or unofficial mascots, either in the way of an actual mascot, like Unsinkable Sam, the cat survived the sinking of the Bismarck, Cossack and Ark Royal, or the USS Nevada's goat mascot, as well as adopting a fictional character as a mascot, like how several ships of the modern Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force who share their names with their World War II predecessors have adopted the Kantai collection incarnations. As I did not know that. That's really cool. I'm struggling to think of any ships that I served on that did actually have an official mascot. Or even an unofficial one. Because you can't have pets on board Royal Navy warships. You know, those days are long gone. So we didn't actually have any animals on board. Although each ship did have affiliations. I can't remember which ship I was on. Oh, it was HMS Coventry. I was on HMS Coventry. And they were affiliated, obviously, with the city of Coventry. And the Jaguar car manufacturing factory is located in Coventry. And I remember when we did RASs, or replenishments at sea, when we're refueling from a tanker, they would run up the RAS mascots, I suppose you'd call them, and they were like big inflatable Jaguar symbols and logos and stuff, and a Jaguar flag that we'd run up the mainmast. So that's the closest thing to it. Each ship had their own sort of affiliated stuff. Like when I was on HMS Newcastle, it was all about Newcastle Brown Ale and Newcastle United Football Club. And so we had a lot of that sort of stuff. But nothing like Unsinkable Sam, for example. Those days are long gone, I'm afraid. Next question comes from, how do you pronounce that? Radogian. He says, hello, old man. Since you're into Warhammer 40k, have you ever seen the Astartes project? I have, and it's just incredible. Yeah. It's a fan-made video that caught the attention of Games Workshop, and they bought out the guy who made it. Since then, there's been no word on any sort of progress on it. It's been years. Yeah, that's really disappointing. Because this was... I mean, even if you don't have any interest in Warhammer 40k, just as an animation project, it is astonishingly good. It was a series of 4 or 5 videos that this one man made by himself. It took him about a year to do the whole thing. And there are various different supercuts of it where they're all stitched together into one that you can see on YouTube. And it was absolutely incredible. So good that the guy ended up being hired by Games Workshop to work on, their own animations. And it was like 2 years ago, and nobody's seen or heard anything from him since. So yeah, really disappointing. And here's the thing. I mean, even if he has been hard at work on something, even if he has been hard at work on something for Games Workshop, and he does produce something like tomorrow, you won't be able to see it without paying Games Workshop a subscription, because it'll be on their own web service. Because they were going after fan projects because people love Warhammer 40k, and there was all kinds of people doing Warhammer 40k animations and putting them up on YouTube. And Games Workshop went after them hard about 2 years ago, threatening DMCA copyright strikes and all kinds of nasty shit. Funnily enough, this all happened right before they announced their own web service, where they were putting their own animations up, and yeah, they really are scumbags. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Astartes project, you absolutely must check it out. It's easily available on YouTube still. And it's just a real shame that the guy that did it all, amazingly talented fella, basically got absorbed into Games Workshop, and we haven't seen anything from him since. Because people, the end of it all, there was a sort of a teaser of what was going to come up in the next one, and there was just some amazing, very quick flashes, like Predator assault tanks battling. Oh, it was just, yeah. But promise of what was to come, and it's been about 2 years and there's been nothing, so yeah, real shame. Basement Jesus says, Dear Almighty Overlord, what are your favourite war movies or series? I'm sure you could put a top 5 list together rather easily. Ooh, favourite war movies. Well, Saving Private Ryan has to be there. I'm not going to say it's that, rather than doing our top 5 in order, because I wouldn't like to say which was my favourite. Let's go for 5 really, really good war movies. So Saving Private Ryan absolutely has to be on the list. Platoon 100% definitely has to be on the list. I'd also say Full Metal Jacket, so 2 Vietnam War movies on there. The Longest Day was made in the 60s and starred everybody. I mean, it's like Robert Mitchum, John Wayne, you name it. Anybody who was a major movie star in Hollywood at the time was in The Longest Day. It's all about D-Day. The whole thing takes place starting with the paratrooper landings on the night before, through to the invasion itself, and the whole first day, including like the Battle for Pegasus Bridge and all of that. It's all in this movie. It's absolutely amazing. It's all in black and white. It was made in the 60s, but it's an incredible movie. So what have we got? We got Saving Private Ryan, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, The Longest Day. Fifth war movie. Oh yes. Stalingrad, German language movie, came out about 15 years ago, I think. It's hard to watch. Let's put it that way. It's a German movie. It follows a German regiment that were posted to Italy and then got transferred to the Eastern Front. And wow, it's brutal. It's an incredibly good movie. But I warn you, if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching, but it's tough to watch. Right? It's really hard to masturbate to, if you know what I mean. It's yeah. But that would be my list. There's probably other movies that deserve to be up there that I've just forgotten about off the top of my head. But yeah, if you haven't seen any of those, any of them will be a treat, except for maybe Stalingrad. That one's going to traumatise you. But it deserves to be seen. Next question from Dusty. Hello, Jingles. Got one silly question for you. What's your favourite conspiracy theory? And at that bonus question, if you want, do you have one you actually somewhat believe? Ooh, favourite conspiracy theory. That the moon landings never happened. In particular, that they were all filmed by Stanley Kubrick in a soundstage at NASA somewhere. I think that one's amazing, because you can see the stuff on the moon. The astronauts, subsequent moon missions after Apollo 11 left mirrors on the moon, so we could bounce lasers off them to measure shit. There is physical evidence that we were there, but there are still people who believe that the moon landings were faked. It's unbelievable. Is there anyone that I do actually somewhat believe? I wouldn't go so far as to say any that I actually believe, but there's a lot of really dubious shit that happened around 9/11. Like, for example, I'm not saying that, I'm not going to go so far as to say that it was all faked or staged or it was a government plot, blah, 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 blah. But there are certain things that happened on that day that do not make an awful lot of sense. Like, for example, there were various different relatives of Osama bin Laden on business in the USA on the day that it happened. And the FBI wanted to speak to them once it became clear he was responsible for the attacks. And the FBI tried to not arrest, but to detain and question. Because if you're looking for a criminal, the first thing that you do, you don't know where he is, you check his family to find out if they know anything about his whereabouts. So the FBI were attempting to talk to these different relatives of Osama bin Laden, because he came from a very, very wealthy Saudi Arabian family. And they were prevented from doing so by the Secret Service, who were escorting all of the members of Osama bin Laden's family on US territory to airports and getting them out of the country. So that is a bit dodgy. What's going on there? I don't know. Some people would say that since the Bush family, who were, president at the time, were extremely friendly with the oil-rich bin Laden family, that they didn't. There's all kinds of theories floating around. But the one thing that is absolutely 100% true is that the FBI tried to speak to the members of his family that were in the US, and they were prevented from doing so by the Secret Service as they were getting them out of the country. So make of that what you will. Anyway, thanks for the question. Next one from, where are we? 20 Thoman. Oh, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Hello, Sir Jingles. I love the Horizon Forbidden West series and loved your series of the first Horizon games. I obviously think that you're a good storyteller, and your commentary, even if you get things wrong all the time, is very fitting. Do you have any plans on playing the new Hellblade game? I loved the first game, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I thought it was a really unique way of looking at mental health within the context of the game. It was all set during the Viking era. I think the character was actually a Celt based who lived in the Shetland Islands, or the Orkneys. The whole village had been wiped out by Viking raiders. Anyway, but the character was mentally disturbed. She kept seeing things and she had hallucinations. But as far as she was concerned, they were real. And the game treated it as if they were real because it was from her perspective. So, it had a really interesting and brave way of looking at the issues of mental health. Game did reasonably well. Didn't set the world on fire, but it did well enough for them to make a sequel. Unfortunately, the sequel, I haven't heard good things about it. It's one of those games where there was what's his name, Yahtzee, used to do zero punctuation, and then they split up with their publisher, host, whatever, and now they're called Second Wind, and he does fully ramblomatic video guides, and I think he summed it up best, where the character does just bloody stupid shit because the game decides that you need to. And that really winds me up. That's if I want to be railroaded into doing stuff that's blatantly dumb, I'll just play a Ubisoft game. So I was kind of disappointed with all of the reviews that I've heard of it, because I really did like the first one, but the second one isn't. It's not selling well, and it's being reviewed really badly. Next question from Blunt Claw Lizard. Hello, have you watched Arcane before? I haven't. It's on my list. So if anybody doesn't know what Arcane is, it's a Netflix animated show based around League of Legends. I know that sounds bad, but apparently it's been getting rave reviews. I did watch the Cyberpunk show. I got around to watching that. That was incredibly good as well. I can't remember what it was called. Edge Runners, that was it. In fact, they did a tie-in in Cyberpunk 2077. The jacket that the main character used was you could do a short quest and you would end up with his jacket as a cosmetic item. But no, Arcane is one of those things that's on my list. It wasn't the sort of thing that I initially had any interest in, but so many people have said it's good. But it's hopefully I'll get around to watching it while Netflix still hosts it. But yeah, it's one of those things that I do want to watch. And at the moment, actually, I'm between shows. So yeah, I must get around to doing that as soon as I've got some free time. How are we doing for time? We're half an hour in, no problem. Probably got about another 15 minutes. Next question from Spratotles. Next question from Dave. Hi, Jingles. 2 questions. How did young Jingles look like? I mean, when you were 20 to 30 years old. Oh, yeah. Completely different to how I look now. I'll dig around and see if I can find any photos. I can't guarantee I can actually find any. But if I do, I'll stick them up at this point during the video and you can all have a laugh. For the last 10 years, you look the same. Yeah, like an 80-year-old guy. Yeah, and I guess that's what serving in the Navy will bring you. Yeah, Yeah, you spend 6 months at a time in a steel box with bad air conditioning under artificial lighting and see how good you look. But yeah, I'll dig around and see, because I'm sure I've got some photos somewhere. Although whether they're in digital form or not isn't. But if I can find any pictures of what I used to look like, I'll whack them up at this point. A second question from him, could you do one episode of Project Zomboid? It's an isometric zombie survival game, and with your love for scary games, it could turn into a funny episode. Oh, I don't know about that. I'm making no promises, Dave. Oh, you might be asking too much there. The next question comes from Silas. Hi, Mighty Overlord. In your last Q&A, you mentioned that you almost visited the Czech Republic. Yeah, as you should have had some work there. Yeah, it was. I was going to World of Warships, but I can't remember what. But it never ended up happening due to the airline being completely not a dicks. His question is, if the Czech Republic is a country we'd like to visit, I would love to visit the Czech Republic. It's an amazing Christmas holiday destination, apparently. I think it's possibly, don't know for sure, but certainly as far as Europe's concerned, it might be the most popular Christmas holiday destination. For good reason. You know, the food and drink there is absolutely amazing. If yes, then I would suggest not focusing on Prague only, as we have plenty of amazing places here. Oh, here we go, recommendations. Brno, for example, student city, full of pubs, bars and good restaurants, while having tons of historic stuff and lots of weird statues. Thank you for the recommendation. Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, Prague's popular for a reason. It's really good, but it's just swarming with tourists if you go there at certain times of the year. So Brno, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm probably not. Is that where they made the Bren gun, by the way? Because the Bren gun, the World War II British Army light machine gun, was called the Bren, B-R-E-N. The E-N at the end came from the Enfield factory where it was built and licensed in Britain, and I'm pretty sure the BR at the front came from Brno, the town or factory where it was originally developed and designed in the Czech Republic. Which wasn't the Czech Republic, it was Czechoslovakia at the time. You know what I mean, Czech Republic now. He says, thanks for all the fun for the last 11 years. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's been 11 years. Holy crap. Seems I'm getting old too. Just the best to you and keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Silas, and thanks for the recommendation. Next question comes from Handy. Good morning, Jingles. Hope you're well and recording. I've recently moved out from my parents' house at the age of 22. Ooh, wow. I was wondering if you had any tips, tricks, or anything else like that for someone so inexperienced. Could also throw in some easy cooking recipes. I don't really have that much personal experience of the sort of thing that you're going through at the moment, because I mean, technically you could say I moved out from my parents' house when I was 19, but that's because I joined the Navy. So I still had somebody looking after me, providing me with a place to sleep and food to eat. I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff myself. But because I didn't actually get my own place until I bought this place, and I was 52. Yeah, 52 years old before I got my own place. And prior to that, I only ever lived on ships, in Navy barracks, or rented rooms from friends in their homes. So this was the first time I'd ever lived, and I had to look out for myself and take care of myself. But a couple of recommendations: I can make pasta. Piss easy to cook, really cheap, and well, I'm not going to say really, really tasty. That depends on the sauce that you put in. But making a pasta sauce is very easy. Cheese and milk, job done. Maybe add a bit of hot sauce in there as well. Pasta will be a lifesaver because it costs nothing. It's as delicious as, well, that's up to you. And it's just really easy to cook. There are a couple of YouTube channels I would recommend that you take a look at if you're thinking about cooking. Trying to think. There's a guy called Joshua Weissman who does some really good stuff. I was going to recommend somebody like Binging with Babish, but a lot of the stuff that he does is actually kind of expensive. Oh, Sip and Feast. There's a YouTube channel called Sip and Feast, and there's an Italian-American guy who lives in, I can't remember where he lives, somewhere in the New York-ish area, and he does a ton of Italian-American recipes, all of which are incredibly cheap, and I've cooked some of them myself, and they are absolutely amazing. So yeah, go for that. Check out Sip and Feast on YouTube. This guy does some great Italian-American cooking recipes. Highly inexpensive, thoroughly delicious, Really, really easy to cook. All pasta dishes are easy to cook. So check that one out, Sip and Feast. How are we doing for time? Oh, we still got some time left. Let's go for the next question. This is from Not the Sharpest Tool. Greetings from Seattle, Washington. Mighty Dumb Overlord. It's 3 a.m. over there. I'll bet it is, yeah. First, well wishes. Hope you're recovering well from your operation. I am, actually. I feel really, really good. I feel better now than I did, well, obviously than I did before the operation. But I've lost so much weight, and obviously with the diabetes as well, which I'm no longer technically diabetic because I've got my blood sugar levels down. But the eating habits that I got into as a result of getting that beat, I just feel I've got so much more energy, and I just feel better. So yeah, I feel way better than I used to. Second, his actual question: do you have any favourites from the various museum ships around the world that you've been to? Museum ships. Let's think. So the Belfast. And I think the only actual other museum ship that I've been to, well, actually no, there's HMS Victory, of course, here in Portsmouth, and then also HMS Warrior here in Portsmouth, and then the other one, when they were unveiling World of Warships, when it was actually going public, and they invited the press to the Chatham dockyard, which used to be a Royal dockyard, and they've got HMS Cavalier there. It's a World War II destroyer. That was really, really good. I just remembered. It was really good. There was a whole bunch of German games journalists, and they split all the groups into languages. So all of the Frenchmen were in one group with a French translator and guide, and then a German translator and guide with the German groups. And then at the end of the tour, everybody met up in the rear mess deck for some fish and chips. And we got there first. There was only like 4 of us in my group. And then all the Germans turned up. And so they're all sitting at their table, we're at our table, and everybody's digging into their fish and chips. And I turned around and said, bloody hell, the last time we had this many Germans on board a British warship, we just pulled you all out of the water from the sinking of the Bismarck. And it turns out Germans do have a sense of humour. They all thought it was hilarious. Oh, I don't know if you caught that, my phone. That'll be my notification that I have a delivery arriving. Yeah, I've got some groceries turning up soon, so we're probably going to have to knock this one on the head. But I would have to say HMS Belfast. It's probably the easiest one to get to because it's in the middle of central London, and it's incredible. The thing that I mean, as a civilian, if you go on board HMS Belfast, you'd be like, whoa, check this out. Oh, this is all new and so on and so on. But for me, it wasn't so much that everything was so new, it was that everything was the same. I mean, Belfast was built in the 40s, and I joined the Navy in 1989 and served throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. And there was so much on the ships that I served on that was exactly the same as what was on board HMS Belfast. It's shocking. I mean, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They nailed the particularly I'm talking here about damage control and firefighting arrangements. And it's, I suppose, an indication of just how good the Royal Navy's damage control and firefighting arrangements were in World War II, that very little needed to change for the next 80 years, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that was the thing that really stood out to me when I was wandering around HMS Belfast, how similar everything was to ships that I served on. The mess decks were different. These days everybody has a bunk. Back in those days there were still slinging hammocks in the mess decks, and there were some bunks, but mostly you'd just stick a hammock up wherever you could and that'd be where you'd sleep. So that's changed, but a lot of stuff is still more or less exactly the same as it used to be back in World War II. Second question. Any upcoming games that you're looking forward to or could recommend? Actually, so I've been talking a lot about Star Wars Outlaws lately, and how the stuff that Ubisoft have decided that they themselves have voluntarily shown to us have been some of the most underwhelming parts of what you might expect to see in an open world Star Wars game. Because that's the game's unique selling point, the fact that it's technically the first open world Star Wars game. Yes, I know you could say Star Wars Galaxies actually nailed that, but that was an MMO. This is a single player open world game, so yeah, they're different. And yet, of all the stuff that they've been presented to the public, none of the open world stuff has been there. So why? It's your game's unique selling point. What's so bad about the open world stuff that you don't want to show it off in advance of the game going live? Was the question that a lot of people were asking. And the stuff that they were showing looked a bit janky. Like, NPC AI was a bit suspect. NPCs be completely ignoring the characters. Some of the animations looked a bit eh. But you could put that all down to, well, it's an early build. It still needs polish. But then why would you show it if it's not polished to the degree that you'd be happy to show it to the public? Don't show it to the public. So there's all kinds of questions been flying around about that. However, last week, Ubisoft gave games journalists, access to the game and allowed them to play it for a weekend or something. So more than just a 15-minute gameplay trailer. Now, initially, I was thinking, oh yeah, games journalist, yeah. So how many journalists did you buy for this preview weekend that you were, you know what games journalism is like these days. It's in a fairly sorry state. However, I'm inclined to believe that the reports that we were getting back from these games journalists were actually true because of the way they were saying it. And the general consensus appears to be, most of the journalists that played the game agree this is actually pretty good. But why it's pretty good, and this is the reason why I believe they're telling the truth, because a lot of them were saying, this doesn't feel like a Ubisoft game. Now, if you think about that for a minute, the best thing that an assembled group of games journalists could say about a Ubisoft game after being invited to play it for a weekend was that it was good because it didn't feel like a Ubisoft game. So I find this quite encouraging and also very, very funny. So yeah, that's Star Wars Outlaws. That's the one I'm actually looking forward to, and I'm just killing time at the moment, waiting for that one to come out. And I've got Fallout London to play now as well. Managed to finally get it working. You have to have there's a certain specific version of Fallout 4 that Fallout London will work with. If you've got the latest version from Steam, forget it. It won't work. Go to Good Old Games, get it from there. It's specifically set up to work with Fallout London. So I've got that to keep me busy until Star Wars Outlaws comes out on the 30th of August. And I think, since I have a grocery delivery turning up probably in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to have to call it there. Apologies to anybody who didn't get their questions asked. Still guns, yeah. Yours is the next question. Sorry, don't have time. But I hope you all enjoyed the Q&A. And if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, hope you all had a great weekend. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.